Number 25. Worthless telephones. In a Western Union internal memo issued in year 1876, it was published, "This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us." More than a century since this statement was first published, there's no denying that it was a failed prediction. The telephone has been one of the most important inventions to have ever been introduced in the modern world, and even now that mobile phones are more widely used, the value of telephones in the corporate world cannot be underrated. Number 24. X-rays are fake. Mr. Lord Kelvin, the former president of the Royal Society of Edinburgh, argued in 1833, X-rays will prove to be a hoax. Back then, X-ray technology was just discovered by Röntgen. Little did Lord Kelvin know that a century after, this invention would be deemed as among the most valuable discoveries in the field of science. Number 23. Submarines are useless. A British writer, famous for his writing in the science fiction genre, H.G. Wells once stated his view of submarines. "I must confess that my imagination refuses to see any sort of submarine doing anything but suffocating its crew and floundering at sea." While submarines today are used to perform specialized functions both in expeditions and military operations, it was a total mistake for Wells to deem it useless. Number 22. The copying machine is too big. Sometime in 1959, multinational technology and consulting corporation IBM released a statement saying that the world potential market for copying machines is 5,000 at most. It had no market large enough to justify production. Today, photocopy machines are among the most valuable machines in any office environment. Number 21. Cinema's a trend. Renowned actor, producer, and comedian Charlie Chaplin claimed in 1916 that the cinema is a little more than a fad. It's canned drama. What audiences really want to see is flesh and blood on the stage. Stage plays did used to be a huge form of entertainment, but since the dawn of cinemas, going to movie houses has become a lot more popular, and the fad over cinemas is never as fleeting as Chaplin thought it would be. Number 20. Rail travel is impossible. Irish scientific writer Dionysius Lardner once made a prediction that traveling through rail would be impossible. According to him, quote-unquote, "Rail travel at high speed is not possible because passengers, unable to breathe, would die of asphyxia." Number 19. To the moon and back. Audio inventor Lee DeForest claimed in 1926 to place a man in a multi-stage rocket and project him into the controlling gravitational field of the moon, where the passengers can make scientific observations, perhaps land alive, and then return to Earth. All that constitutes a wild dream worthy of Jules Verne. I'm bold enough to say that such a man-made voyage will never occur regardless of all future advances. In 1962, Neil Armstrong and 2 others were the first men to step on the moon and come back to the Earth alive. Number 18. Alternating current is useless. American inventor and businessman Thomas Edison, in his aim to mock rival George Westinghouse, remarked in 1889, "Fooling around with alternating current is just a waste of time. Nobody will use it, ever." Years later, his statement proved to be a fallacious one, since alternating current is now the form of electrical power widely used in the distribution of energy to businesses and residences. Number 17. Electric lights will be gone for good. 2 decades ago, Sir William James Erasmus Wilson, a British physician and a professor at Oxford University, foretold that when the Paris exhibition closes, electric light will come with it and no more will be heard of it. Back then, over 6 million visitors would come to Paris to witness the spectacular event where the colorful lights flooding the city were among the major attractions. Today, one can never imagine the world without electricity. Number 16. Radio is junk. American radio and television pioneer David Sarnoff was once asked to create a music box. In 1921, he remarked, "The wireless music box has no imaginable commercial value. Who would pay for a message sent to no one in particular?" Number 15. Nuclear energy is a dream. Sometime in 1932, renowned German theoretical physicist and inventor Albert Einstein claimed, "There is not the slightest indication that nuclear energy will ever be obtainable. It would mean that the atom would have to be shattered at will." Today, the obtainment of nuclear energy is used in the creation of medicine, weapons of war, and other technologies. Number 14. Railroads are risky. New York Governor Martin Van Buren wrote to the U.S. President in 1830, "Dear Mr. President, the canal system of this country is being threatened by a new form of transportation known as railroads. As you may well know, Mr. President, railroad carriages are pulled at the enormous speed of 15 miles per hour by engines which, in addition to endangering life and limb of passengers, roar and snort their way through the countryside, setting fire to crops, scaring the livestock, and frightening women and children. The Almighty certainly never intended that people should travel at such a breakneck speed. Number 13. Computers are not for the home. In 1977, Digital Equipment Corporation president, chairman, and founder Ken Ostlund issued a statement against computers saying, "There's no reason anyone would want a computer in their home." Today, just over 20 years later, we could certainly respond to that statement. Number 12. Cars are just trends. Once in 1902, the chief of the Michigan Savings Bank advised the lawyer of Henry Ford, the developer and manufacturer of the first affordable automobile, "The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad." He advised Ford never to invest his money in the creation of automobiles, since according to him they were just a whim that would soon pass. Number 11. Passenger planes are not possible. An engineer of multinational aerospace and defense corporation Boeing once remarked, "There will never be a bigger plane built," just right after he got off from his first flight of 247, a double-engined plane that could accommodate up to 10 passengers. Today, we have airplanes that can hold nearly up to 50 times that much. Number 10. Vacuum cleaners on nuclear energy. The president of vacuum cleaner manufacturer Lewis Corporation predicted in the 1990s that nuclear-powered vacuum cleaners will probably be a reality in 10 years. It's been more than a decade now, and the reality of these nuclear-powered cleaners is still not. Number 9. Rockets will never fly high. One of the monthly issues of the New York Times Magazine, released on January 13, 1920, foretold, "A rocket will never be able to leave the Earth's atmosphere." This was an editor's remark on the then prevalent talks about the possible launch of rocket ships to explore the outer space sometime in the future. In 1969, the prediction was proven false as Apollo 11 was launched and went on its way to the moon. Number 8. Satellites will never improve communication. When asked about his future prospect of communication satellites in 1961, U.S. FCC Commissioner Tunis Craven claimed, "There's practically no chance communication space satellites will be used to provide better telephone, telegraph, television, or radio service within the United States." This was eventually proven false when a communication satellite named SYNCOM-3 successfully transmitted signals from Japan to the U.S. during the 1964 Olympics. Number 7. 32-bit operating systems. Several years ago, American business magnate and programmer Bill Gates hilariously predicted, "We will never make a 32-bit operating system." The famous chief operating officer of Microsoft Corporation proved himself wrong when they released Windows 98 in May of 1998. Number 6. TV is just a fad. American film producer and executive Darryl Zanuck said in 1946, "Television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night." More than 65 years since the time he issued that statement, watching movies and shows on television still seems to be the most basic form of recreational activity there is. Number 5. It will be impossible to fly machines that are heavier than air. Canadian-American astronomer who lived until the end of the 18th century, Simon Newcomb, predicted before he died, "Flight by machines heavier than air is unpractical and insignificant, if not utterly impossible." This turned out to be a wrong calculation, as the renowned Wright brothers successfully designed and built power aircraft named Wright Flyer on December 17th of 1903, just 18 months after the prediction made by Newcomb. Number 4. It's impossible to come up with a ship that can sail against the wind. In 1800, French military and political leader Napoleon Bonaparte remarked, "How, sir, would you make a ship sail against the wind and currents by lighting a bonfire under her deck? I pray you excuse me, I have not the time to listen to such nonsense." Number 3. Transmitting voice across the Atlantic will soon be possible. This one is more of a true prediction that no one else believed. Lee De Forest, an American inventor engaged in electrical signals, once remarked, "It would be possible to transmit the human voice across the Atlantic before too much time has passed." He made the prediction sometime in July 1913 when he sold the stock of his own radio telephone company to AT&T and the Bell system. Today, there are hundreds of miles of transoceanic telecommunications cables connecting the world. Number 2. The British Post and the telephone. In year 1878, the British Post Office proudly claimed, "The Americans have need of the telephone, but we do not. We have plenty of messenger boys." Back then, telephones were not as popular yet as they are already today. That time, the American Post Office was already using telephone lines for fast communications, but the British remained firm that their messenger boys were more than enough to be in touch. And number 1. The A-bombs are duds. Chief of Staff to the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy during the Second World War in 1945, Admiral William Leahy told President Truman as they were about to launch the atomic bomb, "This is the biggest fool thing we have ever done. The bomb will never go off, and I speak as an expert in explosives." Soon after it was launched, however, the world was changed forever.